Welcome to Political Perspectives. I'm Hugo Gurdon, Editor-in-Chief of the Washington Examiner. If you're joining us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. I'm joined today by Byron York, Chief Political Correspondent for the Examiner. And Byron, we're talking in the immediate aftermath of several elections that took place on Tuesday. They took place in Florida. There was another one in Wisconsin. Perhaps you could just outline what those elections were and how they came to pass.
Well, in Florida, there were two House elections to replace. One was to replace Michael Waltz, who went to the White House to be the National Security Advisor. Maybe regretting that decision, I don't know. But anyway, had to replace him. And then the other one was to replace Matt Gaetz, who left the House altogether. And so there was no chance that Democrats were going to win these seats.
Right.
Trump had won by those districts by 30 plus points just last November.
Right.
On the other hand, the whole idea with Democrats was that if they got close, they got really close, that would embarrass Trump and show that even a Trump plus 30 seat might be in danger. Didn't really happen. What happened was one of the seats Republicans won by 15 points. The other one they won by 14 points. So there's no doubt that there's going to be drop-off after a major presidential election for a special election the next April. So I think Republicans came out just fine. They obviously had to keep the two seats, given the margin in the House. They did that. They did it by 15 points. No big deal. The other one that was a really big one was the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. And that was a very controversial race, really for a couple of reasons. One, there's a huge fight over abortion in Wisconsin. Has to do with the aftermath of the Dobbs decision, the end of Roe v. Wade, an 1849 Wisconsin law about abortion and all sorts of stuff. And the progressive forces had used that very effectively against Brad Schimel, the conservative candidate. By the way, this is a, quote, nonpartisan election. There are no Republicans and no Democrats. And, but the liberal person was supported by all the Democrats, and the conservative person was supported by all the Republicans. And then the other issue really was redistricting.
Right.
Because the Wisconsin congressional delegation has 8 seats in the House, 6 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and Democrats want more. And so if they got a Democratic justice on the Supreme Court, they would have the votes to get more in the redistricting process. That's what the race was about before Elon Musk inserted himself in the race. He said that this race was important for world history. Got really pretty heavy about it. Poured tons of money, more than Soros or anybody else, poured tons of money into it, and then personally went to Wisconsin. Holds this big rally in Green Bay where he's standing in front of an enormous American flag. It looks like the opening scene to Patton, where General Patton is standing in front of the flag. Anyway, he literally gives away 2 $1 million checks to supporters. The opponents say that's an illegal lottery. The courts disagreed. He got to do it. Wore a cheese head, which you should never really do.
Unless you're at a football game.
Yeah, and so he campaigned for Trump. And so in addition to abortion and redistricting, Elon Musk became the issue.
Yeah, let me just ask you about that one. We'll go back to the Florida in a minute, but let's just talk about Elon Musk, because it seemed to me that he played right into the hands of the Democrats, who have decided, because of their failure in November, that they would turn away from issues of gender and of race, and that they would focus instead on the third of their particular obsessions, which is class. And they have sought, over the course of the last several months, certainly the 2 months of the Trump administration, to depict this as a government for, of, and by billionaires. And and Elon Musk, going out there, essentially allowed them to do that in Wisconsin in a race which was pretty important for congressional Republicans, should go the other way.
I think you're right about that. Now, beforehand, even with the abortion issue, my guess is that Susan Crawford, the liberal candidate, might have won anyway. A lot of people thought it would be 1 or 2 point race. She won by 10. So did Musk play a role in that? I think he did. If you look at the commercials that played, they were about Doge, about destroying Social Security, cutting your Medicare, blah, all the classic Democratic complaints about Doge, and they were saying a billionaire is trying to buy a Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin. So it was pretty effective, and I think what happened was, obviously Musk has had enormous and really historic success in building rockets and cars. And he had a lot of success politically in campaigning for Donald Trump in 2024. And he may have thought that some of that success was more about Elon Musk than it was about Donald Trump.
Right.
And in fact, it was all about Donald Trump. So, this was not a successful foray into retail politics for Elon Musk.
So it has been said, I think, for a long time that he's likely to be leaving the position at Doge in May. This is, again, now being twisted somewhat, I think, by the Democrats to suggest that somehow this has been accelerated or his failure. It has always been the case, has it not, that Musk was likely to be in the government or attached to the government only for a limited
time. Yeah, he became. He was doing so much, he couldn't just be kind of just this outsider who walked in to do this. So the president made him a special government employee. There's a law that you can do that, and the maximum you can serve is 130 days.
Right.
So even if you watched perhaps the best public thing that Musk has done in terms of communication, which was the interview with Fox News' Bret Baier, along with 7 of his lieutenants, which was very, very positive, very serious, no cheeseheads, a lot of talk about serious business. Musk said that he thought he could complete the cutting of maybe $1 trillion by the time of 130 days. So I think Musk is thinking along those lines too.
Right. So let's turn our attention back to the Florida elections. There was an interesting sort of lead up to these races because it was always said and admitted, as it were, by the Democrats that they were never going to really challenge in the Matt Gaetz seat in the panhandle of Florida. But in the Mike Waltz seat, the Democrat raised perhaps 8 or 10 times as much money, and there was talk amongst the Democrats as though this was, and I think he was leading only by 4 points in the polls, that this might actually be able to be flipped. In the end, it was almost as comfortable a victory as in the Gaetz seat. Did the Democrats overplay the idea that they might flip this? And how does this fit into the normal pattern of protest votes that in elections which don't have the president at the top?
Pretty normal, as a matter of fact. And it's also normal for a party to try to build up some buzz and to exaggerate its prospects, to perhaps make that into a reality. First you turn it into a meme, and then you turn it into reality. And the fact is, the Republican candidate, Randy Fine, had not run a particularly great campaign. There was actually a good piece about him in Politico the day before the election, in which the writer notes that he raised almost no money, had to be rescued with millions of dollars from national Republicans, had not held a lot of events. And when the writer Jonathan Martin went to the address of his campaign headquarters listed on his website, he found a UPS store in a strip mall. Nothing going on for the campaign. So not the most impressive campaign in the world, still wins by 14 points. So I think it just shows you where the parties are in that part of Florida.
Right, yeah. It seemed to me to be one of those occasions where a party is trying to turn a foregone conclusion into a cliffhanger. And indeed, of course, the news media like to do that too, because it makes the stories more exciting.
And it's not without meaning altogether, because what is the predictive value, if any, of these two races for the midterms? You know, where the Republicans now own a 2 or 3 seat majority, depending on how you count it. What's the predictive majority? Well, I think a Democrat, if he were being completely honest, would say, well, it shows that we can't pick up any seats in Trump plus 30 districts. But what about a seat where Trump won by 10 points or 5 points that are currently held by Republicans, but maybe we could get those and we don't have to get many to take over the House.
Yeah. So they can think that, and maybe that's plausible. What's your estimation, just coming out of these three races, the one in Wisconsin, the two in Florida? People were setting this up as some kind of litmus test or a weather vane for how things were. How reasonable is it for Democrats to think, maybe we've got a pretty good chance here? How unreasonable is that? How confident should the Republicans feel?
Well, the House is the whole ballgame here. This doesn't say anything about what's going on right now, I think, in terms, it doesn't tell you whether the president's tariff idea is going to work or not work, none of that. But if you look at it, the president has a very, very narrow majority in the House, and historically, presidents lose seats in midterms, not just first-term presidents, second-term presidents. I went back and looked to the 1930s. There were two examples of a president picking up seats in a midterm. One was the first term George W. Bush in 2002, which is right after September 11th, kind of a wartime election almost. And then it was just 4 years before, in 1998, the second term Bill Clinton, where the voters were really mad at Republicans for impeaching him over the Lewinsky scandal. And that was it. You can go back to the 1930s, and presidents always lose seats. Now, will that happen? No, I can't guarantee it will, but it doesn't look good.
Is this, to some extent, is there any, even though it's fairly normal, is there any level of surprise in this, given that public approval for the Democratic Party is now at an all-time low? I think it's at 21%. I mean, did the Democrats, to some extent, outperform what was expected?
I think those, and you look at those polls, true, really low favorability ratings for Democrats. I think the driving force in that are independents who might have been Democrat-friendly or at least open to Democratic arguments, who have now been disgusted by them. The hardcore of the Democratic Party is still right there. There's that 21%. And they're the ones who come out in these kind of elections. And the same for Republicans. I mean, it wasn't a big turnout. And so I think right now we're seeing the base of the Democratic Party come out. They're mad. They're angry about Musk. They're really angry about Trump. I mean, Musk is just the target du jour. But they're mad, and they're going to come vote, and that's what they did.
Yeah. Well, that's where we'll leave it. Byron, thanks very much for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. Join us again in a week's time for Political Perspectives.